Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We are introducing new legislation. We will be sending it out for co-sponsorship today. The legislation supports common educational values. They are the values of core principles of American constitutional democracy, the value of equality, the value of transparency, the value of excellence, the value of parents as primary educators for their children here in the state of Wisconsin. This legislation treats students as equal under the law. Children possess the right to non-discrimination based on immutable characteristics such as race and sex. Children should not face state-sanctioned discrimination or psychological distress in an educational environment based on immutable characteristics. We have a few people here that will be speaking today. We look forward to having you hear their message. And first, I'd like to introduce Scarlett Johnson.
Critical race theory denies the recognition of the equal worth and dignity of each human being. It projects equality before the law and equal protection and benefit of the law, preferring instead a legal regime of racial and gender hierarchies that enable a new form of state-sanctioned discrimination in the name of anti-racism. As Americans concerned with the common good of the nation, we must reject these tenets of critical race theory as directly opposed to the fundamental principles of American government. As parents, we must protect our kids from the psychological distress in an educational environment which divides them into villains and victims.
Good morning, my name is Monica Wickers. My mother was the first African-American graduate of Edgewood College. She was a first grade teacher in the Madison schools. I was a product of the Madison schools. And my kids are currently in the Madison School District. What I am seeing now in the school is something I've never seen before. It's like the teachers are promoting division. We are always taught unity and how to get along with one another. Civil rights helps us advance. And now my children are being made to think of themselves as perpetual victims and to think of the white race as perpetual oppressors. This isn't right. As a veteran of the United States Army, I serve to uphold and defend the principles that this bill promotes. My achievements, honor graduate in basic training, my efforts in the Gulf War, and my honorable discharge are a reflection of my individual efforts and sacrifice, not given to me due to my race. Thank you.
The message of some of the proposed education would have me treat both of my parents differently. I support this bill because I'd like my generation to grow up with the values presented in it. I'd like to see my peers treating each other equally.
I want this bill to pass because it supports the goals of the civil rights movement.
Sorry, I'm vertically challenged. That's why I'm stuck in the back here. Good morning. CRT is a cancer that has invaded our educational system. It needs to be eradicated. Our children and grandchildren deserve better.
Hi, my name is Alex Desmo. Thank you, Representative Gendron, for inviting me to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't come here today to waste your time. I came here to speak against critical race theory. Growing up in the Madison public school system, I was taught a lot of pseudoscience. That is exactly what critical race theory is. As a nursing student, science isn't supposed to be full of random anecdotes. We gather data and quantify it. Critical race theory, on the other hand, uses experiential circumstances that are impossible to back with data. In college, I was taught that I am less than my white classmates because of the color of my skin. I was being programmed to believe that I am inferior because of the color of my skin. It was packaged in the name of racial equity. Well, CRT is not about equity, no matter how much noise they make. Equity means that everyone has the same outcome. This is an idea rooted in the Communist Manifesto. CRT theorists have formed their ideology like a mousetrap. Disagreeing with them means that you are mansplaining, and at worst, if you're white, you are showing internalized racism. These are the same tenured professors that have the time and funding to publish their outrageous publications, further advancing their divisive agenda. They are the same tenured professors that I had the privilege to debate in college. Sure, I might have failed their class, but I still had the privilege to challenge them on critical race theory. Heck, these were classes that had nothing to do with political science. This was psychology, even physical education. If this problem isn't challenged, critical race theory will continue to slither its way into taxpayer-funded schools, government agencies, and even military bases. The future of this nation depends on providing solutions, whether it's transparency or school choice. We need solutions to stop this monster. Otherwise, we're going to see further divide in this nation. Lastly, I'll leave us with a quote of a great governor, soon to be my governor. There's no room in our classrooms for things like critical race theory. Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer funding. Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you.
Thank you all for sharing your stories. Instead of incorporating this type of curriculum and ideology, our schools, administrators, and teachers should be focused on teaching our students the basics, ensuring that they can read and write. Our schools should also be focused on cultivating diversity of thought. In a recent State Forward exam, less than 50% of students grades 3 to 8 are proficient in reading and writing. Just slightly over 60% of all students tested in Wisconsin were not proficient in English language arts. Math scores are similar. Students consistently declined in proficiency from grades 3 to 8. 60.9%, almost 61% of students in grade 9 were not proficient in math. We need to teach students the basics to be proficient, not teach divisive concepts. And we need to do that at all levels of education. Especially after this year, it is imperative that we empower parents to have ownership in their child's educational experience. Parents need to be involved, and they need to have rights. Parents know what is best for their child. Parents need the ability to advocate for their child. And this also holds true for students in continuing education as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Representative Magnikichi, and just want to let you know we're working on 3 bills to address the issue that would remove divisive concepts from being taught in our K through 12 classrooms, universities, and government training. They empower parents and students to know what is being taught and hold the schools accountable for the information that they are teaching our kids. Controversial topics are welcome. Our schools and higher education institutions are places that should cultivate diversity of thought. Curriculum that is divisive has no place in our schools. With that, we'll open it up to questions.
What do the bills actually do? We haven't seen them, so how do they ban critical race theory? What do they limit to be taught? Like what's the substance of these legislations?
So those should be coming out later today, but as Representative Magnifici had just mentioned, one deals with the K-12 school system and also includes curriculum transparency. There are a number of issues that we have heard from parents throughout the state in terms of open records requests not being fulfilled and being able to find out what's being taught in their classroom. Many times we've found out what's being taught in the classroom as a result of virtual education and quite frankly, some of the additional parent contacts with teachers and students that otherwise weren't occurring when we had in-person instruction. Second deals with the university system, and the third deals with training. So training for government officials, government employees, and that is something that I've heard from constituents as well in terms of the concerns that they have with what's being taught, this whole idea of ubiquitous racism. Essentially, when we talk about the K-12 system, you might have heard about the Oregon example of, and really kind of comes back to George W. Bush had coined the phrase, the soft bigotry of low expectations. And when you have it being taught in Oregon that it is somehow racist to have a focus on getting the right answer to a math question, that is just holding people back from the what needs to be taught in terms of everybody striving on their own merits, and really what we're confronting in all of these bills is we're continuing the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and what he expressed, that we are trying to judge our children and our children's children based not on the color of their skin but on the content of their character. Critical race theory is a complete antithesis of that, and so you'll see the specifics, but basically you're not going to be able to not as putting forward ideas, but as curriculum, as what is being taught as fact, as the approved method of instruction. This whole idea that it is okay to discriminate or to racially stereotype somebody on the basis of their race or gender.
So these bills don't actually ban CRT. You don't prevent teachers from actually teaching this in the classroom.
The question with all the parent groups that I've been meeting with in districts outside my district, what is critical race theory? Because each school district and teacher teaches what you're calling critical race theory, something different. So what is critical race theory? We know that there is an education abound, and these bills give the parents the tools to hold their school boards accountable, to challenge what is being taught or instructed. It is, in many parents' mind, an indoctrination.
How is this different from current open records and open meetings laws?
This gives parents an opportunity to challenge their school boards and have recourse and increased transparency in the classrooms, access to the materials.
Are there penalties attached? Are we talking like class I felonies for non-compliance?
If the teachers are violating the educational standards and they are held accountable, these bills do have a punitive enforcement that could occur.
Are you the only 5 Republicans in this building that believe in this?
I said earlier that this is going out for co-sponsorship today. We'll be meeting in caucus and talking about these bills over the next coming days.
You really can't get any more local than a school board. Why not just leave it up to the school board voters and individual communities to dictate the curriculum of their school district?
Great question. These bills do that. They give the parents the opportunities to get what the teachers, school districts, school boards are not giving the parents currently. And you'll hear from parents when we have a hearing on these bills, coming out and talking about the lack of transparency in the classrooms on this specific indoctrination.
Yeah, I don't understand. So are you banning teaching divisive curriculum or not? Because you're saying it's left to the school boards. So the school boards determine what's taught. You're not banning anything. So explain to me how these bills actually ban any teaching in the school.
These bills will prevent teaching racism, sexism in the classrooms, and we'll be putting the bills out today. You will read the bills, and then you can ask questions on the specifics of the bills.
Thanks, everyone. Can I get speakers to
Can
actually
we need
just say
names
spell
of
the
everybody who spoke?
Thank you.
Can we get names of people who spoke and spellings? No?
Yeah. My name is Joy Wickers, Joy.